Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
All right, we know that this isn't possible, but let's just throw it out there. Forget the can they trade them phrasing of this. Would you, even if you could pull this off, is Giannis attractive to you at this point in time on this team, joining forces with presumably Tatum? Do you want, if there's a way that this can work, do you want it to work?
Yes, this guy's awesome. This guy, ever since we started doing the show,
Jimmy hates Giannis like Noah hates Tatum. It's bad.
Noah hates Giannis too.
I don't hate
that being said, John. That being said, John,
Bobby's favorite player in the history of basketball is Giannis, so I don't feel that. But
let me just remind you guys what he did.
I would consider this based on the state of the team.
With very little help around him for the third straight year, fourth effectively, he was 29-9. He averaged 30 for the fourth year in a row. He averaged 10, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. 12 rebounds a game, 6.5 assists a game, shot 60% from the field. One of the best defenders in basketball, period. The only downside here is the free throw shooting, because he also became a 62% two-point shooter this year. Mid-range fadeaway, he had that in his bag. He carried this team. There's just
whoa. Yeah.
There's a personality here that I love as well. And I do like the personality here, and I love how loyal he is and all that.
You have a
nationality
Greek correspondent insider.
John, you'd have to start going to games.
John, why don't you break this story, John? You must have like a cousin involved in some capacity.
I do, yeah.
I just love everything about this player. And listen, he's a little older now. He's built on explosiveness. Maybe that deteriorates sooner than some other players who go into their 30s. There's some risk in adding a guy like this, but I mean, he's just one of the best players we've ever seen, period. And how could you, if there's any way you can add a guy like that, you jump through any hoop it takes.
Jimmy, you're on board?
I am on board. We just did 45 minutes talking about this team being stripped to nothingness. Like, if there was a chance that instead you got Giannis, yes, you just tell me, like, I'll go pick him up right now at the airport if that's the case. In a perfect world, it might be a different superstar, but those guys aren't available, John, right? I mean, unless you're the Los Angeles Lakers anyways. So I would definitely listen. Windy has made these statements before, and you know exactly which ones I'm talking about.
When he said it today, I was like, what? Why is he saying that?
Why do you think that is?
He doesn't just throw things at the wall without at least some sort of inkling. So where there's smoke, there's a little fire. I'm not ruling anything out. Bobby, go back to the calculator again. Figure out a way for this to happen. There's got to be a way.
You can't combine salaries.
You can't, but you can if you gets you under the
if you get below the second apron first.
If you get below the second apron, you can.
And honestly, you do have a compelling package, and that was Windhorst's point here, is that, you know, compared to some of these other teams,
you're going to send stars back. Yeah, exactly.
And you know, does Milwaukee actually keep those guys? Do they flip them for more like the Blazers did with Drew Holiday? Like, you know, that's a question for them. But
John, how is like
Celtics are in position to do this if they really want to?
How is like the Greek situation here in Boston? Can he kind of?
We're so freaking Greek here. Are you
all
kidding?
Right then? So that's
they're competing with New York City, though, John.
That's true. New York's got more of everything, though. Yeah, New York's got a lot more.
They get lost there. Too, yeah, exactly.
A lot more scaffolding.
Yeah. There's more of everything there, which means it's like, you know, there's plenty of Greek community here for Giannis. I'll make sure I'm a part of the outreach.
Parade. I know there's a Greek parade. There's a lot of stuff.
The Greek parade, which is supposed to be for Greek Independence Day, which is Pempti Martio, the 25th of March, is always like 2 months later because they can't get a license to get into the city at that time.
I'm pretty sure that happened again this year.
It always happens in like May. It's 2 months after, but it doesn't matter.
Noah, how do you feel about Giannis?
Noah, are you on board? If it could work, how intriguing would you find this, both in terms of how spicy it would be to add a player of his caliber, but also fit, assuming you would be sending out probably Brown and Holiday, who knows what, and what you'd have is a Giannis-led team waiting for Jason Tatum to return.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about get rid of those players for nothing, like Jimmy just said, sure, I'd rather have Giannis than get rid of Jalen for a bunch of players that aren't that good, right? Like if we're going to get rid of a star, like my thing with Jalen is that I don't think that he's going to return you a star, like a legitimate star of his caliber or better. But if he does, then Giannis is like the number one guy that comes to mind. So sure, Giannis is a great player. Like he does a lot of great things. I don't know that there's any substance behind this. I do think Windhorst is pretty reliable. He's probably as reliable as it gets. So if he said that,
I think Windhorst's point was that Giannis is intrigued by this.
Giannis wants the East, and
it is kind of a weird
this
thing.
is the only thing that would make sense.
Next year, to go from having a star teammate with a torn Achilles that would punt it a year to another star teammate with a torn Achilles that would punt it a year. Like, it's not a win now situation next year, right? By all accounts, we still think Tatum needs to be back for this team to be in that position.
Yeah.
So
the point is that
how old is
term,
Giannis now? 30, 31, 32?
Yeah.
30.
Like, I think he's just 30. Okay.
Maybe
he's.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what?
I just hate the idea of trading Jalen. I think.
Let me also say this: if you're the new Celtics ownership, acquiring a guy like Giannis is also a pretty good business decision too. And
I wouldn't be shocked, right? That's what I'm saying with this offseason. It could literally go in a million directions.
It could go in a million.
Yeah,
and you'll see
this is a Bible thing.
Because I think there's a trade or two you have to make before this happens. So you'll start to see things set in motion. You'll be like, oh, all right, what's going on here?
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way? Let's slide Al over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke an hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke